After my husband left, he didn't cry. I just went quiet, like the world finally matched the sound inside me. I moved to a small lakeside town that didn't ask questions. A town where no one knew who I used to be. I rented a cabin at the edge of the water and started working nights at the bakery, kneading dough until my hands forgot what it felt like to hold someone. The days blurred into each other. Morning light, the smell of flour, the soft hum of loneliness. It was quiet, predictable, safe. In the way an empty room can be safe. I told myself I liked it that way. No expectations. No attachments. No second chances. Most nights, I'd lock the bakery door early and stand behind the glass, watching the lake turn to silver. I liked the stillness until the night he walked in. He came in just before closing, carrying the chill of November on his shoulders. Broad-shouldered. Tall. Yet there was a scar running along his jaw. The kind of mark that doesn't make a man look broken, just real. He ordered black coffee. No sugar. No small talk. When I handed it to him, his voice was low and steady. You should lock the door when the sun goes down. I said. I did. He looked at me. And for a second, it felt like he was seeing something I'd hidden from everyone else. The tiredness, under the calm. He nodded once, took the cup, and walked toward the door. Before he left, he turned back and said, You shouldn't stay here alone this late. I wanted to ask how he knew. I always did. But by the time I found my voice, he was already gone. That night, the silence didn't feel safe anymore. It felt like waiting. I kept thinking about the way he said it, not as a warning, but as something that had already been proven true. When I finally closed up, the street outside was empty. The lake looked darker than usual, the air colder. For a moment, I thought I saw a shadow move near the waterline. But it might have just been the wind. Back in my cabin, I sat by the window, watching my own reflection blur against the glass. The loneliness I'd built so carefully suddenly felt fragile, like one knock on the door could shatter it. I didn't know his name yet, but his voice stayed with me. Low, steady, like a song you didn't mean to remember. And for the first time since my marriage ended, I caught myself wondering what it might feel like to not be invisible. He didn't ask for my name, but somehow, it felt like he already knew it. And that scared me more than loneliness ever did. Days turned into weeks. I thought he'd just been a passing moment, one of those people who appear once and vanish, leaving nothing but the echo of curiosity. But then he started showing up again, first for coffee, then to fix small things around the bakery, a loose door hinge, a flickering light, a pipe that wouldn't stop dripping. He never asked if he could. He just noticed things, fixed them quietly, and left before dark. People in town said his name was Eli Mercer. He ran a repair shop by the highway, kept to himself, spoke little, worked hard. At first, I tried not to notice how I waited for him, how the bell above the bakery door made my heart jump every time it rang. But he had a kind of calm that was rare, not the calm of peace, but the calm of someone who had already been through hell and learned to live with the smoke. He never asked questions, never flirted. He just showed up, did something kind, and disappeared like it didn't matter. But it did. He never offered comfort. I remember thinking, but somehow, being near him felt like exhaling. Sometimes we talk about nothing and everything. He told me he used to be a firefighter, that he'd lost his wife in a fire. He couldn't stop. He said it like a fact, not a wound. But his silence after told me what it cost. His guilt lived in the quiet between sentences. And maybe that's why I trusted him, because my own guilt lived there too. One evening, after closing, We walked by the lake. The air smelled like rain and smoke. He stopped to skip a stone. And I said, "I used to paint here. Before?" He looked at me. His voice soft. "Why do you stop?" "Because I couldn't look at something that stays while everything else leaves." He was quiet for a long time before saying, "Then start again. You still have hands. You still have light." It wasn't poetic. It wasn't even gentle. But it landed like a truth. I'd forgotten I still deserved to hear. After that, I started painting again. Not for beauty. Not for healing. Just to prove I could. One night, as I was closing, my ex-husband showed up. Drunk. Bitter. Angry that I'd managed to live without him. He demanded money. Closure. Something I couldn't tell which, before I could answer, Eli walked in from the back, wiping his hands on a rag. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't threaten. Just stood between us quiet. Steady. Unshakable. My ex looked him up and down and sneered. "Who the hell are you?" Eli said softly. "Someone who doesn't raise his voice." It wasn't a warning. It was a statement. And somehow, it was enough. The man left, muttering, his anger dissolving into the cold night air. I stood there shaking, staring at Eli's back as he turned off the light. He didn't touch me. Didn't say, "You're safe now." He just nodded once, like the matter was closed. In that silence, I remembered what safety used to feel like. The rain started that night, soft at first, then heavy. When the wind picked up, I found him still outside, fixing the porch light. "Come inside," I said. "You'll get soaked." He hesitated, then followed. We sat near the fireplace, the room glowing with flickering orange. He smelled faintly of rain and ash, something clean. "Something human," he said quietly. "I used to believe saving people meant never sleeping. Then I learned some things aren't meant to be saved, only held until they stop shaking." I whispered, "So you fix what's broken?" He looked at me, eyes tired, but kind. "Only when it still wants to be fixed." We didn't touch. We didn't need to. The air between us felt full enough of everything we weren't saying. I watched the firelight flicker across his face, and thought how strange it was that two people could meet after losing everything, and somehow build a quiet that didn't hurt. When he left, the house felt different. Not empty. Just waiting. That night, as I lay awake, I realized the scariest part of being alone wasn't the silence. It was realizing how good it felt when it wasn't. Winter came early that year. The lake froze before December, and the town went quiet again. But this time, it was a different kind of quiet, softer, lighter. I started painting again, real paintings, not just sketches. Eli built me a small easel out of spare wood and refused to take money for it. He said, "Artists shouldn't pay for tools. They already pay enough in other ways." The bakery changed too. He helped hang my paintings on the walls. People started asking about them. Someone even bought one, a small piece of the lake at sunset. Happiness felt strange. Foreign. Like wearing someone else's sweater warm. But unfamiliar. Eli didn't talk much about himself. But I learned he carried more than just his wife's memory. A child. Too. Lost in the same fire. He never said it. He just knew. You can feel that kind of emptiness in a person's silence. One evening, I overheard him on the phone outside the bakery. His voice was low. Steady, the same tone he used for everything that mattered. He said something about training volunteers out of state. And I knew he was leaving. When I asked, I didn't deny it. He just looked down at his hands. Then at me. "People like us," he said, We don't stay where we're needed. We stay until it's safe to leave. I felt my throat tighten. And what if this time? It's safe because of you. He gave a half smile. The kind that hides behind tired eyes. Then I did my job. He didn't say goodbye that night. But the next morning, I woke to find the porch light fixed, glowing bright in the cold. Beside it, a folded note, keep the lights on. You never know who might need them. No name. Just that, I stood there in the doorway, holding the note against my chest, watching the snow fall where his truck used to be. Time moved differently after that. The lake thawed. The mornings grew longer. And life, somehow, went on. I sold more paintings, laughed louder, breathed easier. Sometimes, I'd catch myself turning when the doorbell rang, half hoping, half knowing it wouldn't be him, but his voice still lived somewhere in the quiet. Like the hum beneath a song you never stop hearing. Months later, a letter arrived. No return address. No words. Just a photo of a rescue team standing in the snow. In the corner, someone had scrawled 3 words. Still fixing things. I smiled, cried a little, then turned off the porch light for the first time in months, because I finally knew what it meant to feel safe, without waiting for someone to prove it. I used to think love meant someone staying. Now I know real love is what teaches you how to stay for yourself. If this story found you tonight, maybe it's because you needed the reminder that strength isn't loud. And love doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes, it just knocks onto, fixes what's broken, and leaves the light on. If you felt something, share it. Tell me what part of this story reminded you of you. Like, subscribe, and stay for the next one where love doesn't rescue you. It restores you.